Round 2.
5 days of crushing mobs, greasy, bad-tasting, overpriced food, and stinky, sweaty people. I had saved up over the time span of 2 years for this, and when I arrived, I found out that money was only the iceberg's tip of what this venture was really going to cost me. It had been a testament of time management, smart budgeting, sheer willpower, and luck. Oh, but it was worth it. All around me there were movie stars, famous directors, action figures, and 1,000 other wonders. But most importantly, there were comic books, all filling the San Diego Convention Center with a sheer power and intensity that threatened to blow the roof off the place like some giant festering zit. You know, like the ones that covered the faces of half the people there. This is Comic-Con International, the great mecca of popular culture, ground zero of everything science fiction, fantasy, and comic book related. And a geek magnet of the likes of which the world will hopefully never be able to replicate. Now, a word of warning about geeks. When they get together, they will argue over some of the most random, bizarre, pointless things you can think of, such as shipping, Star Wars versus Star Trek, and why Joel Schumacher gave Batman a bad credit card. Sadly, none of these debates can compare to the chaos that resides within our story today. This is Geek Fight by Bradley Walton. I love comic books. The fusion of words and pictures on the printed page can bring to life the most epic of visions, or the most touching of moments, in a way that Hollywood can only rival with sums of money large enough to buy third world countries. When you're making comic books, you don't need to have a 100-person special effects crew, and you don't need to have a catering crew, and you most certainly don't need to go on location to bizarre parts of the world nobody in their right mind is going to care about. You just need to have the imagination and the skill to get your idea on the page. And that's it. Mission accomplished. Now, while I was at Comic-Con, I probably spent too much money on comic books, my being there, of course, being the ultimate testament to that, and the freshly purchased rare comic book sealed in a Mylar sleeve and tucked in my backpack. That would be the second test. Now, I'm not ashamed of that, because I'm not a geek. I have a life. I have a family. This is simply my hobby, and I enjoy it. However, I tend to avoid all the others who actually read comic books, because they are individuals who live vicariously through the exploits of fictional characters, adults with no social skills, who hide out in their parents' basements and go onto online message boards to make snide comments about Spider-Man's web shooters, all the while hiding their true identities behind screen names like Mr. Tauntaun 47. These individuals have nothing worthwhile to say on the internet, and they have even less worthwhile to say in real life. At one point, 2 of them were standing in front of me, having an argument over who would win in a fight between Daredevil and Boba Fett. Now, the man arguing in favor of Daredevil was dressed as a character from some Japanese anime that I hope I'm never able to correctly identify. Although, I think it may have been Sailor Moon. Japanese school grew up with fail, it seemed to me. What I found particularly striking about him was the color of the 2 days' worth of beard paint, which clashed so horribly with the blue, iridescent strands of wig, which cascaded down his back like a million radioactive Smurfs who had made their last desperate stand against Gargamel Pasta Factory and lost. Now, the man arguing in favor of Boba Fett was an obese stormtrooper, his armor splotched with bizarre color patterns that I didn't recognize. Now, I wonder, perhaps he had modeled his outfit for some obscure trooper squad from a comic book or a video game, or perhaps somebody barked orange soda on him at the concession stand. He spoke with a fire and brimstone passion that would have most Southern Baptist ministers co-withering with it peyote. Kinda like listening to Martin Luther King Jr. talking about jetpacks, flamethrowers, and wampa wrestling, all the while laced with a steady string of F-bombs that would have made Kevin Smith proud and muffled by the unmoving mouthpiece of one of the Galactic Empire's finest. Now, it appeared that the ignominious demise of Boba Fett at the hands of the blind Han Solo had not escaped the notice of the man in the short skirt and the long blue wig. He argued, not unreasonably, that if Han Solo, brought to his eyesight, could defeat Boba Fett without the use of Daredevil's radar-like sixth sense, then obviously Daredevil himself could do the same.
So I'm telling you, Boba Fett's like a big whoop. You have a radar sense, you got radar. And no one can like a jetpack with no phone when you got radar. Han, he was blind. He ain't got no reflexes. And Daredevil got killer reflexes. So if Han ain't got no reflexes, and they both can't see, then obviously Daredevil can do the same. And if you can't see that, you need to get some brains and some eyes that actually work. The obese vomit trooper disagreed, citing with instantaneous recollection that Boba Fett in fact escaped the Sarlacc pit in issue number 81 of the Marvel Comics Star Wars series that was released at a time where he was still proud he did not have a girlfriend. Now, some of the things he said cannot be repeated in polite company, so I shall instead substitute the name of Anakin Skywalker's former slave master, Watto, in the place of any family-time-friendly words. Watto and Daredevil got half the Watto style of Watto and Boba Fett. Watto and Fett oozes Watto and Hoover every Watto and pull of his clone body. Watto and Han, he got it like a cheap shot, but didn't even count, because the Fett, he got the Watto out of that Watto. So Watto you. I watched the mixture of amusement, horror, and disgust as these two nerds grappled with each other like some geek Cold War. Except, instead of the proliferation of nuclear weapons, they just dug deeper and deeper into the resumes of the characters whose virtues they espoused. Now at first, I thought this was a debate the man in the skirt was going to win. Daredevil having debuted a good 14 years before Fett, and thus having more time to accumulate a history. But it became apparent that the knowledge of the Vomit Trooper was vast. We soon realized that no novel or comic book had gone read, no video game unplayed, no action figure uncollected, no tablet pop-up book unpulled, and all collected in a database memory so vast and efficient that it most certainly could have been used better for something else. Now, as the debate raged on, I noticed the muscles underneath the sheer white sleeves of the man in the skirt grow tense, and I realized something. He wants to win this debate by any means necessary. And I stepped back. Violence, never a pretty thing. What happened next? No exception. The man in the dress punched the stormtrooper, and it was so pissed. Immediately, a circle of onlookers gathered around the two as they fought. No, convention security was nowhere to be seen. Immediately, I saw cell phones and video cameras appear above the heads of the crowd, and I knew that within minutes, this spectacle would be on the internet for the world to see. If that stormtrooper had any sense, he would have left his helmet on. The man in the dress had no such recourse. He would be shamed for life. That is, assuming he had any friends or a social life for which to speak, and in all likelihood he didn't, and this event would have no lasting impact on him whatsoever. But I pondered, what could bring a man to such a point in his life where, dressed in an absurd costume, he comes to blows with another man, in an equally absurd costume, over an absurd matter of absolutely no importance? When that first punch was thrown, I was ready to thank heaven I was nothing like these two freaks. And a moment later, my certainty was flagged. Immediately, a hairy leg encased in a thin layer of nylon crashed into me, sending me spiraling backwards into the crowd. Apparently, in the time it takes for a stormtrooper to headbutt an anime drag queen into a crowd of gawking bystanders, it is easy for one to be pulled into a pointless brawl. But I steeled my mind to resist. Although so many comic books feature heroes and villains garbed in outrageous costumes locked in eternal physical combat, only a fool would blur the line between reality and fantasy. And in that moment, I found peace within myself, as I realized I was indeed a higher being than those two freaks, and I was filled with a profound and sublime joy that immediately vacated the spot to make room for a gut-twisting panic as I ripped open my backpack to examine the contents within. Turned itself to horror. Spidey protected Mylar Sheep, a rare comic book that I had only weeks before purchased, for $600. Had stained in the upper right-hand corner a 1/8 of an inch crease, easily devaluing it by 30%. I grabbed a Batman mask off the head of somebody standing next to me, and covering my face, I joined the melee. Scene.